Welcome back to GB Road Games. In this video, I'll be breaking down the various playstyles that one can adopt when running a Dungeons & Dragons game. While this topic has largely been covered by so many pros in the past, I figured I'd have a crack at putting my thoughts out there on the subject. I typically categorize playstyles of D&D into the following: railroading, sandboxing, and my personal mix of the two. More on that later. And disclaimer, these are just my interpretations of playstyle terms that get thrown around within the D&D space, and I think they're mostly comparable with the consensus of how people play their games, and I'm using their more extreme uses. So, let's start with railroading. When you need to force your players down a strict, unwavering path devoid of agency or choice on their part, this is the way to go. And what's more appropriate to represent that than an actual railroad? There's a clear linear A to B to C for the narrative. Any attempts to deviate from the predetermined path leads to a complete derailment of the game. Pick a fight with the wrong NPC, brute force a puzzle, or roll a little too well, the DM may navigate the circumstances back to their liking to stay on track. Doesn't sound too enjoyable, right? Being told what to do in a game, all about having fun powers to demonstrate and skill sets to implement, but the requirement being you stay on script. So why would anyone use this playstyle? I think it's important to realize that railroading isn't inherently negative. A linear structure can be used for the force of good. There are pros and cons. For many of my brand new players, I'll use a heavier railroaded approach because my new players already have a lot to learn. Tracking character sheets, practicing their role-playing voice, figuring out which dice is which and what pizza to order for the break. They appreciate having their handheld to be told what the adventure hook is and how to approach it. It takes away the potential option paralysis and debates that can occur when focus on the narrative is too broad. So with that in mind, what can we do when our players are more adventurous and experienced? What happens when players don't stay on rails and you let them run loose? Well, welcome to the sandbox, the other end of the spectrum. An open-ended environment where there is no obvious path forward, maybe a vague starting goal. Any choice or direction the players move into crafts the story just as much as the various points of interest the DM can litter around their fictional world. A village here, a cave there. This approach is open, with the only restrictions being the power scaling player characters have versus the events they may face. Something looks too tough, you just drop what you're doing and move on to the next path. Or players push through and the whole party gets wiped out. It can be very adaptive gameplay. The variety and range this style offers can be refreshing and make the world feel reactionary and maybe more immersive to your players. But, as with railroading, there is a slight con here. A breadth of wild choice and direction may not be the best way to form a cohesive story. Not that it's impossible, but players with total agency and governance where their characters can go may mean you never quite get to your endpoint. On top of that, you'll maybe rely on random events, perhaps ending up with too much to track as a DM, and have to make decisions on the fly, and keeping the gameplay balance could be harder work if the players chase something they're not ready for. Plot points from one session ago can also lay abandoned, and there may be problems if one single player is taking over the story progression more than others. Here's an example for these two playstyles and how they might function. So, you're tasked with saving a princess from a dragon in a tower. A classic, a trope we can all imagine. Let's look at this idea on rails. Right, save the princess. If I'm railroading, then I know what NPCs are on the path, what items they need for the dragon slaying, and exactly how to push my players to that goal. This adventure is likely prepared down to the sentence, and it's getting played the way it was intended. If you want to start a fight with the NPC quest giver in the first 10 minutes of playing, not here you won't, and as a DM I can simply say no to anything I deem too outlandish. But not allowing any ideas about how you might save the princess or defeat the dragon might feel restricted, especially to players with more experience. Maybe they want to talk that dragon down instead of a fight. Rally up the townsfolk to help. But with railroading, they just don't get that choice. Any ideas outside of the pre-planned story scope are simply not allowed. So, no seducing the dragon here. So what about that sandbox? Same idea. Save the princess from a dragon. Players decide to approach this quest in a unique way. They come up with their own idea to go way out of town and find another dragon to fight for them, level up and make the combat trivial. Or maybe They look for an overpowered item, sending them on a different quest entirely. Yeah, I won't stop them, and we make that happen regardless of the obstacles that could make. Also, if you're great at improv, this is your time to shine. You can pull out all of the yes and moments and rely on random encounter tables to fill the spaces. Okay, so now my players are going to spend so much time on those new ideas they may completely miss the end goal, and if they even come back to the princess to try and save her, well, yeah, maybe it's too late, or maybe they never even come back, or their party is killed down the line. There's a possible chance that your great improv skills might run dry, and this dead ends a session, so you'll want to call it a day to have some time to regroup. So what is the right style? The point I'm trying to make is simply that you should gauge the players you have and see how they want to play. There isn't a right way, just a fun and not fun way. Only you and your table know what that is. However, you didn't make it this far into the video for me to end with a simple just have fun message. That's Dungeons and Dragons 101. If there's no fun at your table, why are you there? So there is a third option I think perfectly pairs the strict guide rails with the options of the pliable sand environment. I present the sand rails method. Yes, that's my non-original naming convention that merges the two ideas, the best of linear structure with the agency to explore. Rails that are made from sand, more commonly referred to as a module, a set of independent pieces or standardized parts that can be used to construct a more complex structure. So let's break that down. Let's look at trying to map out the story of saving a princess from a dragon again. We have our path, you start the adventure, and the hook is set. This time, instead of presenting a single rigid pathway or scattered non-connected places, we have a mix of the two. We connect our points of interest to our track, making these branching pathways, ending up converging to our end goal. This time, if players wish to explore, we have some predetermined destinations that are loosely grounded to our main mission. Maybe the woods have a fey creature that grants a boon, or a cave that has a dragon-slaying sword. By conveying choices, the players have agency to choose which course of action to take to progress, no longer confined to a narrow one-dimensional path, and not overreaching to a stream of never-ending random places. This is about getting ahead of your players, using the illusion of choice. Yes, you can make the argument this is just railroading and sandboxing with extra steps. However, the key difference here is by combining the two, you have populated your game with enough detail to satisfy the explorative player and the focused player who is on target for the end game. An enjoyable moment in any game, I find, is to simply give my players a left or a right, a fork in the road, two doors to pick from. I can clearly ensure they know what leads where, but they won't know exactly how it ties back into the main story until they commit. This is where DM and player interactions can birth organic moments. Hey, maybe they even backtrack to a previously unexplored section because of a curiosity, a completionist mindset. This modular style is what is mostly considered the standard for every adventure out there. You pick up most books for D&D and you'll find it takes place in this exact setup. An adventure hook, side quest destinations, and the final location all planned out on a linear path that has enough choice to give the players agency. How many side quests and optional tasks are seen to before heading to the end is in the player's hands. The woven interconnected narrative is in the DM's, creating enough variance while completing a story arc. So there it is, my view of how I structure most of the games I run. Like I said earlier, this isn't new information to you, but hopefully my perspective is. Let me know in the comments if you prefer securely fastened railroading, the wide open playground of a sandbox, or something in between. Until next time, good luck and roll well.